smoking, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes. They feel that if you are a vegetarian, you basically are immune to the heart diseases, the cardiovascular diseases, which are the number one cause of death across the globe. You have to use your heart, you have to use your brain to beat the heart diseases. The World Heart Federation's message this year is concerned. It's a great slogan when we say that you should use your heart to beat the heart diseases, or cardiovascular diseases as they call it as. So the way it was all planned was that we want you to use all your might to fight the cardiovascular diseases, which are the number one cause of death across the globe. So we need to be invested in primordial and primary prevention. Now, primary prevention, as you know, before the event has occurred or before the heart attack has occurred. And primordial prevention is when you try and prevent even the risk factors. So we need to get invested into the primordial prevention and primary prevention through the control of smoking, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, and a campaign to curb the air pollution. So there are linked messages about use your head, use your influence, use your compassion. We want you to make healthy choices to prevent disease. Listen to your heart if you have heart disease and seek care. Support the vulnerable people around you. So that was the compassion. And help us, the medical professionals, to help you. And last but not the least, support the World Heart Day by bringing awareness, disseminating knowledge, putting the plans to action, and conquer the man-made diseases. So I call these cardiovascular diseases, most of them, as the man-made diseases, or these are the diseases of our self-affliction. They should not have happened if we lived a disciplined life. So the fault is squarely ours if we do not conquer these diseases. So now when you talk about the pandemic, in the pandemic, there have certain things which have come across. We have seen when we were in the lockdowns or shelter-ins or whatever else various countries called them in, we saw certain significant changes. And you might have written it earlier in some of your interviews or some of your writings that you do, that there has been a significant decrease in the number of patients who have come with heart attacks or sudden deaths to the hospitals. And people were surprised. People always thought that these people are hiding at homes and they did not want to come out and get infected. And that is the reason that they were trying to die at home rather than coming to the hospitals. But the truth was somewhere in between. Yes, some of the people were truly hiding. If they could weather it and if they could stay at home, they wanted to stay at home. But then there was a true decrease. Likely there was a true decrease in the number of people who had the heart disease or who had the lung diseases also, the respiratory diseases also. And the reason was considered to be that there were two main things which were happening. Number one, that there was a significant decrease in air pollution. I have seen some of the pictures from Delhi where you are showing the India Gate. You have never looked at India Gate like this. You have never seen the blue sky like this in India. It happened there, it happened in China, it happened in UK, it happened in most of the countries. That all that layer of pollution was all gone in those days. And I can tell you that this has significantly affected the number of the patients who present to you with heart attacks. And so the number of people coming to the emergency rooms. The second important thing that happened in those days was our food changed. If you look at New York, for example, there are so many restaurants in New York. They say that for next 10 years, if you have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner at a different restaurant, for next 10 years, you will not need to repeat a restaurant. That is the New York City, right? But all the restaurant business in that time was all gone. Essentially, there was nobody in the restaurants. Now, if you were not exposed to the fatty food, if you were not sitting in the smoke-filled areas, if you were not binging on the alcohol, then you probably were preventing these events. So if we really look at that, it gives us a lot of insights. Is there a possibility that I can continue to do the same things? I don't have to be in a lockdown to follow a good lifestyle, and if I can do that, why should I not be able to decrease the wrath of these diseases? So it is entirely possible. You look at Netherlands, for example, you have seen that the majority of the cars that are being sold there are Teslas. These are all electric cars now. They are completely changing from the fossil fuel to the electrically driven cars. Now we have got electrically driven cars, the hydrogen driven cars are coming in, driven cars are coming in, and so many other things which are happening. Why can we really not curtail the air pollution and help ourselves? And here it is not only talking about the heart diseases. Think about the children who are being exposed to, who are not suffering today, but I do not know what exactly are we doing to them and where exactly their life is going to be. And specifically, when you start talking of the people who are young and who are developing the heart attacks, India specifically, when I go to India, and it is only the COVID months that I have not been going back home, but otherwise I almost monthly I visit country. And when I go there, I see, youngsters in their late 20s, in early 30s, they are suffering from heart attacks. What exactly are we doing to them? So it all comes to ourselves. We are inflicting it on ourselves. So if I have to mesh the two, as you very correctly asked, would we be able to learn from this? It has been 9 months essentially now that we are sitting at home, or people are sitting at home, we are not. But we have had the time to reflect upon all these things which have gone on around us, and can we really mesh them together and say that yes, we have seen that this can happen, and yes, we can do it, and let us go ahead and do it. And I think the World Heart Federation's message for this particular World Heart Day is you have to use your heart, you have to use your brain to beat the heart diseases. Whenever I see my Indian patients here also, the moment they come in and they would tell you, I'm a vegetarian. What do you eat? Oh, I'm a vegetarian. And they feel that if you are a vegetarian, you basically are immune to the heart diseases because vegetarian food can never go wrong. But the fact remains, what do you eat? How do you eat? And in what format do you eat? So when I ask them, and if the samosa and gulab jamun becomes the most important food, every night is one gulab jamun. I only take one gulab jamun every night. It's a hand grenade that I take every single night. It is. I take samosas. How bad can I make it? This is the art that we have mastered very well. So basically, you have flour, you pack it with potatoes and you deep fry it. And then what we blame is the French fries, right? French fries, they look benign to me in front of what we eat, all these samosas and kachoris and pakoras and all those things. We really need to, if we are vegetarians and if we follow our diet properly, I think we would do very well, very well. It is something which is culturally, it puts us on an advantage, right? We can do very well. And when I talk about the diet, I tell you that diet is the root cause of the problem. Essentially, we are wired uniquely, we are engineered in a way that we are not vanquished in adversity. 200 or 250,000 years ago, our system had learned how to use all we had to convert into energy, whether I got something to eat, I did not get something to eat, I got fats, I got carbohydrates, I got proteins, whatever you got, you knew that you need to convert it into energy, because at that time there were famines. And when there were famines, you basically needed the energy wrapped around your belly to be able to use it in the adverse circumstances. There was something what is called as Krebs cycle. And Krebs cycle, all the medical students, all the biology students, they will all know it. Krebs cycle that got the Nobel Prize, Krebs got the Nobel Prize. This is the fundamental of our existence or our living. In the Krebs cycle, you basically have this cycle where the food is consumed, or the fats and the proteins, the glucose, everything that is all consumed in a way that it is all converted into energy. And whether you use fat, it will be converted. Whether you use proteins, it will be converted similarly, or the carbohydrates, they all go into the same direction. And they all converted into energy. Now, this consumption that is occurring, that consumption would be either taken away and will be converted into energy that we need, and only that much of energy that we need will be used. Rest of it is all stored, and you store it and you wrap it around your belly, right? And then you use it when there would be famine or when there will be an adverse circumstance. The other thing which can happen at this from there is that this food that you are consuming could also be utilized for producing temperature. So when you go to the colder climates and colder countries, it would have a different function also. But say, for example, we are in the warmer part of the world, and the Indian subcontinent is predominantly in the warmer part. So we would say that we are quite like what used to happen 250,000 years ago in Africa, where the life actually arose from. And we also wrap it around our bellies. And you have seen that this is typically, when you look at these metabolic syndrome people and all, that is how they look like, like their bellies are this thing. Now, at that time, when the famine will come, they will all consume this fat, and then they'll be ready to gather it again around their belly. But now that we don't go through the famines as much as we used to at that in those early days, we basically, what do? We continue to accumulate it. And there comes the obesity. There comes the obesity-related situations. You have metabolic syndrome, you have diabetes, you've got hypertension, you've got heart diseases, you get stroke, you get all those things. And this is all related to the same phenomena, that we are starting from the root cause, and that is what I said, that is the diet. So dietary part is extremely important when we think of it. But now that we don't go through the famines as much as we used to at that in those early days, we basically, what do? We continue to accumulate it. And there comes the obesity. There comes the obesity-related situations. You have metabolic syndrome, you have diabetes, you've got hypertension, you've got heart diseases, you get stroke, you get all those things. And this is all related to the same phenomena, that we are starting from the root cause, and that is what I said, that is the diet. So dietary part is extremely important. Every oil has significantly large amount of calories, as you can imagine. And that I often tell my patients when they are using the salads and they pour multiple spoons of oil, or they use the salad dressings and things like that, which are full of oil. You are adding so many calories here. So first important thing that I would like to tell them is that it is the volume or amount that really matters. And after that volume, it doesn't matter how much you use. If you are going to be using this much of a volume, it doesn't matter which one are you using. But to be very honest, I would like to use a fat which is in the liquid state rather than in the solid state, right? And remember, we used to use so much of dalda and things like that, and or the saturated fatty acids, and so that's not good. So first important thing is that we need to get away from the saturated fatty acids as much as possible. and we should prefer the unsaturated fatty acids. It is known that the unsaturated fatty acids are associated with much lower heart attacks. Most plant-based oils, they predominantly or preferentially, they consist of the unsaturated fatty acids, and the butter, lard, coconut oil, and the palm oil, etc. They are mostly the saturated fatty acids. So basically, I do not really have to be worried much about which oil should I be using. These are nuances, whether it is coming from, it should be a plant-based oil, whether it is coming from nuts or seeds or olives or wherever it is coming from. I think I would prefer the plant-based oils, number one. Number two, that I should go with a lower quantity rather than anything else. But then when you talk about things, canola, safflower or sunflower, olive, these are good oils. And Mediterranean diet, as you know, is full of olive oil, which does comparatively better as compared to the other areas. But then again, the most important thing which I would like to say, that is any one liquid or is any one plant-based oil is superior to the other? I would say no. The differences are small. You should limit the portion size. You should eat right. You should exercise well, and do not fall for nuances. Like, I like that oil because it has 3 calories less than the other oil in 1 spoon. So what? Vegetables in abundance, fruits in moderation, and go nuts in small amount. Nuts in the small amount, not more than an ounce a day. That is what I normally tell my people. 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce. It's 1 ounce of the almonds would be like about 20 almonds, or about 10 walnuts. That will make 1 ounce, and that's about 160 calories. So I personally recommend almonds because they are good source of the polyunsaturated fatty acids, good source of proteins, vitamins, and antioxidants. And there is no cholesterol. But as you very rightly said, that we have to be careful because they have lots of calories and they add up fast. And specifically when people are sitting and they just start eating the nuts and they go nuts eating them, it is a big problem. And specifically, they become very harmful when they are salty, when they are fried, when they are chocolate covered, or when they are sugar coated. So nuts does not mean that you can put them in any form and eat it and they will still remain blissful. If you can do the intermittent diets, nothing like it. And now there is enough scientific evidence that these are the better type of diets. This is what you exactly should be doing. Say 16-8, 16 hours you are fasting, 8 hours you are eating. And it is not essentially only reducing the amount of calories that are going in there, or so it is reducing the total duration of eating, and then letting your body deal with it in the remaining time. It is very important, and that's what it is. When you sleep in the night, you do not want that you should be loaded with food at that point in time, right? So this 16-8, for example, or now what they are calling as the OMADs, or 1 meal a day. These are very impressive way of dieting, and scientifically we know why do they do well. They do well because they are the best source of or best stimulation for producing the stem cells from your bone marrows, and basically whenever these stem cells are there, they are essentially your repair mechanisms. So like your wear and tear which is happening in the body the whole day, you basically have a surplus of the stem cells, you will do very well. Now, if you really look at our own culture, the Indian culture, I tell you that people would laugh at us when we say, oh, I'm fasting for Lord Hanuman, because I do that. I do it on Tuesdays, I fast. Or I'm fasting for Lord Shiva. On Mondays or Wednesday, मैं गणेश जी के लिए करता हूँ, or things like that. All those things, they have a definitive meaning. that 24 hours, if I'm going without food, that is really helping me, and this is the stress which is producing these stem cells. And I tell you that they created so many upavasas or so many fasts over the week. So you can go and choose any lord and you can do the fasting for that. It is helping you. Same thing you can see even in Islam. They have all these rosas or Ramadan or that they do. And so for full 1 month, they do not eat from morning through night, essentially giving them a 14 to 16 hours worth of a fast. But we should not change it in a way that during the day we don't eat anything, but during the night we just go ahead and keep on eating. Then we have not learned, we have not gained anything by doing that. So essentially, all these religious sentiments or the cultural things that have happened, they all have led us to believe that we have to have a dietary restriction. We are not supposed to be eating all day. We need to limit the duration. So when we were talking in the beginning of our interview, we were talking about the volume. And now I'll come to it that not only the volume, but I think I have to shrink the duration of the diet that we consume during the day, and you would do well. So now, for example, here I do 16 hours of fast, and I eat 8 hours. Normally, I am not trying to lose weight or I'm not trying to do anything, but I just want to maintain my diurnal cycle in a way that is probably the best or what we are evolved with or for. Now, when we talk about the exercise, it is all about exercising, and you trying to find the nuances about one exercise is better than the other. I don't think it goes anywhere. So get down to workouts, whatever you can do. All exercises are good exercises, and you need both aerobic exercises as well as the strength training. Specifically Indians, we are sarcopenic. And sarcopenic is where our muscle masses are low. Normally, if you look at the Indian habitus, you will find that most of the Indians are sarcopenic. They don't have much muscle when you compare them to when I see the people here and we see them, leave aside the people who have started or getting into the bodybuilding and all. And why is it that the muscle is very important? Muscle in the body is one of the biggest sinks for the nutrients, amount of carbohydrate that you use or amount of protein that you use or amount of fats that you use. It has to be consumed somewhere. And who consumes them? Muscle is the biggest organ that will consume them. And how would it consume them? When you will be doing the aerobic exercises as well as the strengthening exercises. Now, there has to be a caution when we talk about the strength exercises, that we should not be doing the heavy strength exercises, specifically when you have got severe coronary disease or the valvular diseases and all. At that time, if you are doing too much of weights or things like that, that could be hurtful. But other than that, any type of exercise is a good exercise. And you just need to do it. Do not fall into the traps for that particular gym gives you that and the other gym gives you the other thing. Do anything simple and that will give you everything. I mean, one simple Surya Namaskar, for example, gives you almost every exercise in there. Keep going, keep in the repetitions, do enough of it, do it for the right time, or just simply jog, simply walk, do anything. You just have to be moving. And that's why this 10,000 step business which came in, and 10,000 was a very, I should say, it is just a fluke. Where did this 10,000 come from? So when the Japanese people made these pedometers, the numbers were 9,999, because you have to keep on that electronic numbers in there. So it was 9,999. That is maximum it went to. So 10,000 became our dictum. It's not 10,000. You really don't, you may not require 10,000. 7,000 may be good enough. Or do as much as you can. 10,000 is a great number. We went and we looked at very kind of an ancient population back in Bolivia, and that is the Chimane population. And we studied about 3,000 people there. That is the population which have not seen the modern world as yet. And these people do about 16,000 steps a day. We gave them pedometers and accelerometers, and they do about 16,000 steps a day. And their women do about 1,000 less than the men. And believe it or not, I mean, then their eating is different, their living is different, they don't have air pollution and all. But you will be surprised to know they don't have any calcium in their coronary arteries. They are free of coronary disease. And if they can do it, we can do it too. So 10,000 steps you move in a day, I'll be very happy. When I talk about the bad cholesterol, I always say that your cholesterol should be what you are born with. You know, I mean, what better cholesterol level can you think of than what the God has given to you, right? And you know how much bad cholesterol are you born with? 25 milligrams. 25, right? And when we go with all our studies that we have done, we kept our initial levels of LDL cholesterol or bad cholesterol to be around 130 and said it should be less than 130. Then we dropped the numbers to 120. Then we dropped it to 110. Then we dropped it to 100. Now we are dropping it to 70. And now people have started talking of 55. Why? We are afraid of telling that my cholesterol should be what I am born with. What the God gave to me is my cholesterol. Child is born, and child is born with 25. Within a year's time or 2 years' time at the most, his LDL cholesterol level reaches 120 to 130. What do we do to our children? What do we do to ourselves? You know, so when you talk about cholesterol, my way of saying is the best is what you are born with. Can you bring it down to that level? And that is the reason that I've always said one thing, that we have said tertiary cares, secondary cares, primary preventions and things like that. But at the end, for me, the level is the same level, which is the right kind of level. And the prevention, in my opinion, or for that matter, what you call the term as cholesterol fitness, it starts the day the child is born. What you feed an infant, you give the child the mother's milk. It actually programs the child's liver to a level where the cholesterol should remain, right? And you feed the child for 6 months to 1 year's time. In this time, do not give too much of carbohydrates to the child. That is the most important thing, specifically the sugars. What I meant by the carbohydrate was the sugar. And for the first time in the history, the USDA has come out with the recommendations that the first 2 years, we should strictly refrain from the added sugars in the children's food, right? So that we are able to keep the levels of cholesterol low. I mean, they have not said it that clearly, but I believe that this is what is going to translate into the lower cholesterol levels. We must continue this education in the schools. We must educate our teachers as to what they are telling the children. And I tell you, if you don't like sugar when you are young, you are not going to use it later on. We now try and tempt our children by giving them a chocolate, giving them an ice cream, giving them a lollipop or things like that. And I tell you, we are hurting them by doing that. So these treats which are given to them as an award for doing something good, they do one sum right and he gets a lollipop. That I think is hurting them. Can I give him a carrot rather than doing that? And why should we not go proverbial here that you give them a carrot when they do well, you know? So it is extremely important that we start working on the cholesterol fitness right from day one when the child is born. And then when they go through the school, we should maintain that level. And I can tell you, they would not like the sweets thereafter. It is the industry around us, which is making us sweet or sugar addict, which we should not become.